Allen Lund Company has new offices in Ogden, Utah and Indianapolis, Indiana. Check allenlund.com to reach them.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
Most truckers would likely agree that electric vehicles should pay their fair share for using our roads. Several states have tackled the issue, including Pennsylvania. I'll talk with State Senator Greg Rothman. What sort of taxes might you be paying at the end of the tax year? You can find out by doing what's called a tax projection. I'll talk with Shasta May of MBA Tax and Bookkeeping Service. And finally, many people have concerns about artificial intelligence, and some of those concerns are specific to transportation and to trucking. OOIDA recently alerted the U.S. DOT to a few of those. I'll go over the issue with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today, the national average for a gallon of diesel is down for a sixth straight week. The Energy Information Administration's weekly report has last week's average at $3.68 a gallon, down 1.6 cents from the previous week. Over the past 6 weeks, the price of diesel has dropped nearly 18 cents. All 10 regions on the EIA survey recorded price drops last week. The Rockies saw the biggest decline at close to 5 cents. Prices have started this week on the decline as well. ProMiles.com had the average Tuesday morning at $3.68 a gallon as well, down about 1 cent from the same day last week. A bill with implications for truck drivers that was introduced more than a year ago continues to gain support. 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans this summer have signed on to H.R. 4963, otherwise known as the Tax Fairness for Workers Act, bringing the total number of co-sponsors to 191. For truck drivers, the bill would return the right of company truck drivers to utilize a per diem tax deduction. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association is on the list of supporters. In support of a previous version of the bill, OOIDA President Todd Spencer wrote that the elimination of the per diem for company drivers has, quote, unfortunately increased the tax exposure for many hardworking Americans who make their living behind the wheel of a truck, end quote. A Senate version of the bill introduced by Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania has 40 co-sponsors right now. You can learn more about the Tax Fairness for Workers Act with details for contacting your lawmaker at fightingfortruckers.com. If you haven't filed your 2290 yet, the deadline is fast approaching. August 31st is usually the cutoff date, but the Labor Day holiday weekend pushes this year's deadline to Tuesday, September 3rd. But don't wait. OOIDA notes that taxpayers who wait until the last day are more than likely subject to penalties because their payment will not settle with the IRS on time. Form 2290, the Heavy Highway Vehicle Use Tax, is paid annually to the Internal Revenue Service for vehicles that operate on public highways with a gross weight of 55,000 pounds or more. Brittany Murphy of OOIDA's Permits and Licensing Department says there are a few ways to go about filing.
You can go to the IRS's website and get the documents, fill them out, mail them into them with a check. You can do electronic filings of the 2290 through a third party. So it kind of depends on how you decide to actually complete your filing. The filing is a lot faster if you do an electronic filing of it. You're going to get that Schedule 1 back just a lot quicker than mailing in documents and waiting for it to be mailed back to you.
Before you start, you'll want a few documents in hand. Most are readily available. They include your business name and address, employer identification number, vehicle identification number, the taxable gross weight of your truck, and the first used month of your truck. And get ready to pay as well. As the name implies, this is a tax. Crystal Minardi of OOIDA's Permits and Licensing Department says the amount owed can vary.
So the fee is going to be based on your truck weight, and it's going to range. It starts at 55,000 pounds, and then you're looking at anywhere from $100 and then up to $550, which would be over 75,000 pounds.
The association stands ready to help its members with the annual filing if needed. The end of this week is OOIDA's cutoff to guarantee filings and payments on time. For questions, call the association during business hours at 816-229-5791. Brake Safety Week is right around the corner. The Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance will kick off the week-long enforcement blitz this coming Sunday, August 25th. As with any other year, inspectors across North America will be out in force conducting brake inspections on large trucks and buses, and they'll also have a special focus. This year, it's brake linings and brake pads. Brake Safety Week is announced ahead of time to give truck owners and drivers time to prepare. The American Transportation Research Institute has opened up a new survey dedicated to the growing cargo theft problem. Earlier this year, ATRI's Research Advisory Committee voted to prioritize research on the topic. While the FBI says up to $30 billion is lost to cargo theft each year through traditional cargo theft and even sophisticated impersonation schemes, ATRI says many industry stakeholders are hesitant to publicly provide cargo theft data. ATRI is asking motor carriers and brokers to participate. The survey is confidential and anonymous. If you'd like to chime in, we've got a link at landlinenow.com. Some truck driving job applicants in Washington state will receive a paycheck from J.B. Hunt after settling a lawsuit. J.B. Hunt stood accused of failing to disclose a salary range in its job postings, a violation of the state's wage transparency laws that went into effect in 2023. According to court documents filed in a King County Superior Court, J.B. Hunt has agreed to pay $4.2 million to a class of more than 2,000 applicants for truck driving jobs in Washington state. Knight Transport is facing similar accusations in a similar class action lawsuit that is ongoing. The project to rebuild the I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge in Louisiana just took a step forward. The Louisiana Department of Transportation says the project's developer has sold the bonds needed to complete financing. Final designs are being drawn up now. Construction is expected to begin later this year. From start to finish, the project is expected to take 7 years to complete. It comes with a $2.3 billion price tag. About half of that money will come from state and federal funding. Tolling at the bridge will cover the rest. The current I-10 Calcasieu River Bridge is more than 70 years old. Rhode Island has carved out $625 million for the repair or removal of 15 bridges along Interstate 95. All are located within a 10-mile stretch between Providence, Cranston, and Warwick. 11 will be fixed, 4 will be removed. Work begins soon. Completion is set for 2031. Rhode Island has some of the worst bridges in the U.S. The state DOT says there are 163 bridges in all that need to be repaired or replaced. Transportation officials with the city of San Francisco and representatives of the autonomous taxi company Waymo met this week to discuss the safety concerns of school crossing guards. NBC Bay Area has been running a series of investigative pieces about the city's robotaxis. The latest segment covered the potential risks that Waymo vehicles are accused of posing near schools. The meeting comes on the heels of an NBC Bay Area investigation which surveyed 30 school crossing guards stationed at more than 20 different schools across San Francisco. While some said they believed autonomous vehicles were safer than their human counterparts, nearly 1 in 4 crossing guards said they had at least one close call in a crosswalk with a robotaxi. Either the crossing guard had to rush out of the way to avoid being hit or said the car had to brake abruptly to avoid a collision. San Francisco officials aren't saying much about the hour-long meeting, but a Waymo spokesperson told NBC Bay Area that they had a constructive discussion. And finally, voters in Wyoming's capital city could have an interesting choice this November. One of the candidates for mayor is doubling down on a promise to let artificial intelligence make decisions for the city if he's elected. Victor Miller says he'll attend ceremonies and events, but an AI bot powered by ChatGPT would make decisions on legislation, vetoes, and any other issue that comes up. Miller has named the bot Vic, or Virtual Integrated Citizen. We'll see if Miller and Vic make it to November, first of all. A primary Tuesday could set the stage. 6 candidates are on the ballot. The top 2 make it to November. We'll have updates later in the week. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Registration is now open for OOIDA's Truck to Success seminar, which runs for 3 days starting October 22nd in Blue Springs, Missouri. The deadline to register to attend in person is October 1st. We'll have a link to more information at OOIDA.com. Next, Pennsylvania State Senator Greg Rothman discusses a new law that will make electric vehicles pay their fair share for roads. I'll cover performing a tax projection with Shasta May of MBA Tax and Bookkeeping Service, and we'll hear from OOIDA's Jay Grimes. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Every year, 28 million people are trafficked globally. The Your Roads, Their Freedom campaign seeks to raise awareness in the transport industry. Truck and bus drivers, be vigilant on the roads. If you see something suspicious, text 233-733 or be free.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide. Truck Down Verified, vendor qualified. Truckdown.com.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Here's a simple statement most truckers would likely agree on. Electric vehicles should pay their fair share for using our roads. That said, now comes the hard part, collecting that cash. You're listening to Landline Now, and I'm your host, Mark Reddick. Welcome back to the program. Several states have tried to tackle the issue, Pennsylvania being among the latest states to do so, and each has its own way of handling it. The new law in Pennsylvania, which takes effect on January 1st, will charge owners of those vehicles a flat fee, one of several methods discussed around the country, and a vast simplification of what the state currently does in regard to those vehicles. When it was still a proposal, the measure was written by State Senator Greg Rothman. I spoke with him recently about the new law and what it would do. Well, Senator Rothman, I want to start out just kind of broadly. This is a new law, previously Bill SB 656, now as I understand it, Act 85 of 2024. Kind of speaking from the 30,000-foot altitude level, what will this new law do?
So there has been in place an alternative fuel tax, which in Pennsylvania, if you buy gasoline, you pay a gas tax, and that funds our roads and bridges. If you drive an electric car or a hybrid, you don't pay as much. In an electric car, you don't pay any actual gas tax, but you're supposed to be paying a alternative fuel tax. So the bill eliminates the alternative fuel tax, which was very cumbersome, and frankly, not many people were actually paying it. It's a self-reporting. You have to do it every month. You keep track of the amount of electricity you use for your car and then pay a rate based on that. So we've eliminated that, and we've come up with a flat fee for passenger vehicles, for your personal vehicle, if it's electric, of $200 a month. We actually calculated that the typical driver of a car in Pennsylvania pays about $380 a year in gas tax. But we've created this registration fee. Next year, it'll go to $250, the following year, and then it will be tied to the consumer price index. We've also have, if you drive a hybrid, you'll pay a quarter of that. So $50 the first year and $62.50 for the subsequent year after that. So it's, we see a push for more electric vehicles. The high-end manufacturers of cars are announcing they're only making electric vehicles. And yet in Pennsylvania, because of the way we fund our roads and bridges and care for them, which is an essential core role of government, we had to figure out a way to make sure that we're getting that money. So, and the people who drive electric vehicles want to pay for the roads too.
It's a law now, but I'm curious, when it was in the legislature, what was the level of support that you saw there?
Yeah, we ended up in the Senate. I can speak way more about the Senate because that's where I am. I think we ended up having 43 or 44 votes. So that's pretty broad bipartisan support. The chairman of the transportation committees, both the Republican and Democrat, were in favor of the bill and supported the bill, and I'm grateful for their support. So it's a bipartisan bill. And the House was a little different. There were folks on either ends of the spectrum. More conservative members voted no, and some of the environmental legislators voted no as well. So, but I think it has broad support, and clearly the governor signed it. He understands how important it is to make sure that we take care of our infrastructure.
I want to get into a little more of the details of this new law, and the first thing is, would this fee apply for cars only, for any electric-powered vehicle? Are commercial trucks included?
Commercial trucks are not included. They will still pay the alternative fuel tax. based on electricity use. It's a little easier for them to monitor it because it's a business operation. Does not cover golf carts, doesn't cover electric. I think we even exempted electric motorcycles, electric boats. So we're really talking about the people's personal cars they use. We even exempted, by the way, rental cars, which don't pay anything now. They don't pay registration fees now, and or they get credits for the registration fees. So they'll continue to receive that waiver.
Did you look at what other states are doing in regard to this issue as you considered the bill and kind of put it together? And if so, what did you find?
So yeah, I began working on this 5 years ago when I was in the House. I saw the need as there's more and more push to have electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are heavier, and they do just as much damage to our roads and bridges. And we thought that it was important that they had an opportunity to pay their fair share too. So we did look at other states. One of the criticisms of our bill is that it's now the second highest in the country. But you got to keep in mind that Pennsylvania has the second highest or third highest gas tax in the country too. So we have a decision was made in our legislature and in our state government before I ever got there that we were not going to fund transportation out of the general fund because it became too easy of a target. When you have competing interests to say, well, we're just not going to put any money in the roads this year. We're going to put it into this social service or this entitlement program or this tax benefit or this corporate welfare. And so we have a dedicated source to pay for our roads and bridges, and it is through the tax on users. In this case, gas. When you buy your gas, you pay the gas tax in Pennsylvania. So we wanted to protect that dedicated source because I believe that roads and bridges in Pennsylvania are core function of government, and we should be taking care of them.
You've mentioned a couple of times kind of the nature of how the state funds transportation and specifically roads and bridges. I'm curious what the current state of the state's highway funding is. Is the state bringing in enough to cover everything that needs to be done? Is there somewhat of a deficit? Kind of where are things right now?
Yeah. I mean, my feeling is I'm a member of the Transportation Committee in the Senate. I spent several terms on the Transportation Committee in the House. I have a pretty good idea. We don't have enough money. And what ends up happening is, you just put off what you should be doing. So I'm constantly looking for opportunities to find more money for the transportation. Now we got a big federal, just heard last week, big federal funds coming from the federal government for a bridge we have, but it's a $1 billion bridge, and we're going to get $500,000 from the feds. So it goes a long way, but we'd like to see a federal infrastructure plan. I know there was discussion in the previous administration, even before COVID came out, but after COVID, that sort of got put on the back burner. So we've made some major steps in the legislature since I've gotten there. We've moved money that was coming out of the motor license fund that was going to the state police, which certainly is an important role. They have an important role to play in transportation because they protect our roads. But I felt, and other members felt, that should not come out of money that was going into roads and bridges. So I think it's about $800 million over the last 6-7 years. We've moved out of the going directly from the state police out of the motor license fund, and instead we fund them in the general fund. So we have to continue to look at ways to fund our roads and bridges. And I just think it's something that ends up getting neglected when you have competing interests for a finite amount of resources.
I want to get back to kind of the mechanics from the individual user perspective. Obviously, people who have electric vehicles are going to have to pay this fee. Does the bill kind of go into how the money will be collected? And if so, how?
Yeah, so in Pennsylvania, you pay a registration fee. You can pay one year or 2 years at a time on the anniversary of your registration. So it's different. In theory, you have people paying every month based on when they purchase their car, when they put their car into service, and that's the time that you can pay when you have to pay your electrical vehicle fee as well. Now, we do allow them to pay it in quarters. You can set up on a payment plan, and if you want to pay it in lump sum for 2 years, you can do that also.
Is there any information collected when the fee is going to be collected? And if so, what kind of information will the state be gathering with that?
So right now we do, when you do your registration annually, you have to list your proof of insurance, because we do require that if your car is registered in Pennsylvania, that you have insurance for the vehicle. And we also, we do keep track of your miles. You have to put the miles of your car, and I guess technically that's to safeguard on, for to protect future consumers too. But those are the two issues: your insurance and then of course if your address has changed and we want your home address, then title needs to match up with the address of the property, or the address of the vehicle owner, that there's an address for them too. That's all that we collect now.
Okay. I want to kind of go back to the large commercial vehicles because, as you mentioned, they're still under this alternative fuels tax that existed previously for cars. And, of course, the large truck drivers, our audience there, since they're going to continue to pay under that system, how is that money collected?
Yeah, so every month you have to fill out a form and file it with the Department of Revenue. And it's alternative fuels tax. You calculate how much electricity you used, and it's a factor. You pay a price per kilowatt. I don't know the exact amount for trucks, but it's arduous, it's cumbersome, and I think we should be doing everything we can to make life easier for our truck drivers. So I would be interested in doing something to make their lives easier, maybe to make it a little more efficient how you do it. But it's different because we don't have we have trucks that come through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that aren't registered here. We have a lot of trucks coming through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and God bless them. And we need our truck drivers. We need more truck drivers. And there's a lot of distribution, especially in the area I represent in central Pennsylvania. I have both the Navy distribution center is based right in the middle of my district, and then not far from me is the Army over in New Cumberland. So we have two distribution centers, lots of highways running through where I represent 81 and 83, US 15, US 11, Turnpike. And there are a lot of trucks on those roads, and we depend on them to feed us and get us all of our goods and services. And I tell people, when you order something on Amazon and you get it the next day, it didn't come from, it didn't fall from the sky. It was delivered by a truck driver. So we want to come up with a way. I understand there's also a push for more electric trucks too. So as we evolve into a more electric vehicle fleet, we want to make it as efficient and as reasonable as possible, and of course fair too. I mean, all taxation and fees should be fair.
Fantastic. Thank you again, sir.
Have a great day. Take care.
That was Pennsylvania State Senator Greg Rothman talking about his legislation, previously SB 656, now Act 85 of 2024, to set a flat fee to be paid by the owners of electric vehicles in Pennsylvania. You can follow what other states are doing on this issue at the website landline.media. Again, that website is landline.media. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us through a short commercial break. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine VibraTech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with VibraTech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Loadboard Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Loadboard Pro.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Landline Now, welcome back. Many truckers rely on their tax preparer for basic advice regarding their business, and that's actually a good idea. But that good idea becomes even better if you know what sorts of taxes you might be paying at the end of the tax year. So how do you do that? You put together, probably with the help of that tax preparer, what's called a tax projection. I discussed what that is and how you do it recently with Shasta May of MBA Tax and Bookkeeping Service. We're talking here about income tax projections, and I guess the first thing we need to do is define that term for people that are familiar. What do you mean by an income tax projection?
It's essentially what a tax projection is. It's a financial tool that we use to estimate what your tax liability is going to be for the year.
Okay. How do you go about calculating that?
What we do is we take your current year-to-date, essentially bookkeeping information, your income and expense information, and we use that information to project your tax liability for the rest of the year. So right now, we have a solid 8-9 months of business income and expense information for 2024. And with that much information, it allows us to use that 8-9 months to create an average for the whole year. And with that average or estimate, we project what your tax liability would be.
Okay.
And then with that projected tax liability, then we can do some solid tax planning before it's too late.
Okay. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the bookkeeping process and what sorts of things people should be gathering as they go through time rather than just waiting and trying to get it all later. I mean, what should people be looking for over time to make sure that they can keep their bookkeeping up to date to make this type of thing easier?
I think the most crucial thing is if you can make your bookkeeping month to month a priority, whether you hire someone else to do that month-to-month bookkeeping or you're doing it yourself, whether a software program, doing it manually, if you can do that month-to-month, that information is so financially valuable to you. And when you have your bookkeeping done, it puts you in a position for what we're talking about for the income tax projection. So essentially, the bookkeeping is taking all the income that came in for the month and recording that, then all the expenses that were paid out for the business for the month, and then that total, did you make a profit or loss? So each month you have a profit and loss statement for the month, and then you will be able to run a year-to-date statement for the year so you can see how you've done each month and how you're doing for the year. And when you have this information, you can be more accurate with your estimated tax payments. You can do the kind of tax planning that we're discussing right now, which gives you huge benefits with this information, as long as that you're on it and you're getting it done, doing it yourself, but you have it, and it's just so valuable.
Okay. I was kind of reading about this topic online a little bit, and there were a couple of things I saw that some people recommend, but I don't know to what extent that they apply to folks in the trucking industry. One of them is your personal circumstances. And this is like getting married. Do you have a child? Are you divorced? Have you purchased or sold real estate? So on and so forth. How important is that? And why is it important in this process if it's something you should be doing?
With a tax projection, when I'm explain that we kind of make an average for the year, and it's sort of like we're doing a tax return. Essentially, we're taking all that business information, and then we're also taking personal information, and we're doing essentially a projected tax return. And so, like you mentioned, changes in your tax situation, whether that's a marriage, a divorce, birth of a child, purchase or sale of property, all these things affect your tax situation. So during the projection, we can take business and personal, everything together to get the most accurate projection.
Okay. Is there anything on your previous year's tax return that would be important to this process?
Absolutely. We always look at the previous year's return. We want to compare essentially what those business numbers were for the prior year. We're going to look to see, for example, if you're depreciating equipment, how much depreciation is carrying over to the current year. So it has a lot of valuable information there that we're going to use to project the liability for this year. And there's also a lot of things we're just definitely taking in all the information we have, everything from last year, everything from this year. And then when we get to a number, and let's say you're owing more than you anticipated, then it puts you in a position where you can do some solid tax planning based on your own financial information. Have you paid in enough to your quarterly estimates? If not, you know to plan for that to pay in more. Is there anything you can do before the end of the year to reduce your tax liability? Will it help to buy some tires to give you a big write-off before the end of the year? Are you in a position where you can maybe make a contribution to a retirement account? You may be planning on purchasing a new truck. A lot of people like to take time off at the very end of the year to try to get home to their families. So if done now, a tax projection will indicate your position before the end of the year, so you can do some of this informed planning. I mean, you can make some strategic business decisions. You can avoid surprises. You can minimize your current and future tax liability. So there's a lot of benefits to getting this type of income tax projection done, because I can't tell you how many times with a tax client where we're doing the return near April 15th, and they are stunned by the result because in their mind, things weren't as bad as the results on the return in regards to how much they owe, how much tax liability, because it's easy to lose track of what's happening, over a 12, 13, 14, 15-month period from the start of the year until you're doing the tax return the following year in March or April. So the more you can keep yourself aware and vested in what's going on month to month, the more business power you have with that information.
I want to go back to something you said a few minutes ago. You talked about purchases that you might want to make based on your tax projection. And I've always heard people in different types of small businesses talking about acquiring assets or supplies they're going to need in the future before the end of the current tax year. And I'm wondering, what are the circumstances when you should do this and why? And how does it benefit you?
So let's say, we're approaching the end of the year. We know you've got a pretty heavy tax liability. And let's say maybe we'll ask a client, listen, if you are intending to buy tires in the next few months anyway, let's not wait until January or February of the new year, which gives you that write-off in the new year. Maybe it's be a smarter business decision if you made that purchase November, December, before the end of the year, because you're getting the write-off in the year that you need it. Because going into the new year, you may not need that write-off because we don't know, it's a mystery what the new year is going to bring, but we don't have a mystery here. We know you have a big tax liability. If you can afford to make that purchase, if you're going to have to make it anyway, let's do it now so we can absolutely benefit you for the current tax year. Now, we're not recommending go buy tires if you don't need tires. We're not recommending go buy tires if you don't have the money for it. But this is what these projections help us to determine. Like, here's where we are. We're in August, September, October. We have this information, and then you can sit down with your financial planner, with your tax advisor, and can come up with some scenarios that fit with your specific situation. you don't have to just take arbitrary advice that may not work for you or that worked for someone else, but you're not in the same situation, because these numbers in this projection are based on your business and personal tax scenario. And that's what gives it so much power and the ability to really be helpful for you.
What are some of the things that people commonly miss when they're involved in this process, when they're doing a tax projection?
Well, I think that, if we're doing a projection with you, we're going to let you know if there's something missing. But basically, it's all the information that we would ask for if we're doing a tax return. We want to have as much of the bookkeeping information completed, the profit and loss statement, so that we know exactly where you are at the end of, say, August, September, so that we know that we have the most accurate information to date and we'll estimate the rest of the year. And then we can always make little tweaks to it before December. Once we get the October and November numbers, we can say, hey, listen, this is looking better. This didn't do as much benefit as we thought. And we can kind of go from there and try to get it to a point where this information that we've gathered and that we've done is going to benefit you.
You mentioned something a moment ago. You said, if we're doing one of these with you, and that kind of struck me. Is this something you really need to be doing with your tax preparer, and why is it important to do it with them?
Well, to get the most valuable information, you should definitely do it with your tax preparer, because they're going to be able to take all the information from your prior year taxes, any changes to your current year, like you had brought up about, marriage, divorce, those types of things that affect your tax situation, birth of a child, all these things that affect your tax scenario. And like I said, we're essentially doing projected tax return. We're putting all the information into like a tax return scenario and letting you know what those results are. And where you have the ability to make changes is in the business portion, the profit and loss, the business side of it. That's where you have the leeway to do things like making purchases, or this may keep you from making a purchase that you don't really need, but you think you do, but you can wait till January to do it so you don't make it worse for yourself. And then maybe that money for tires is going to be better spent sending that money for an estimated tax payment. So it really customizes advice specifically to you, your business, and your personal life, then trying to get you the absolute best results that is for you yourself, not anyone else, you and your situation, your specific scenario.
Okay. Well, Shasta, all very helpful information. Thank you very much for sharing it with us.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
I've been talking with Shasta May of MBA Tax and Bookkeeping Service about income tax projections. If you have questions about this or other tax matters, you can contact Shasta May by calling 1-888-407-1669, by email at smay@mbataxhelp.com, or by going to the company's website, mbataxhelp.com. Again, that's 1-888-407-1669, by email at smay@mbataxhelp.com, or by going to the company's website, mbataxhelp.com. We'll have all that information on our website, landlinenow.com. Just click on the photo or headline at the top of the page, and you'll find all the email addresses, website links, and phone numbers we mention on the show. Again, that's at landlinenow.com. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to Prepass.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now. Welcome back. By now, you've likely heard about AI, artificial intelligence, as well as the concerns many people have with the emerging technology. However, there are some concerns that are specific to transportation and to trucking, and OOIDA recently alerted the U.S. DOT to some of those issues. Here to discuss that and more is OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Jay, thanks for joining me.
Good to be with you.
This started with a request for information from the DOT. What type of information did the department say they were looking for? What questions were they asking?
Yeah, so this was sort of a broad effort from DOT to gather feedback from stakeholders across a number of transportation modes, and they were really looking from interested parties on the potential applications of artificial intelligence in transportation, as well as emerging challenges and opportunities in deploying AI technologies. So I think they asked about 5 different questions on current AI applications, opportunities, challenges, other considerations. So chance for public to provide some feedback on current uses of AI and what may or may not lie ahead.
What are some of the places where artificial intelligence is already making headway into transportation?
Yeah, quite a few places, and DOT kind of really put out a few things, enhancing the safety of pedestrians and vulnerable road users at roadway intersections. You kind of see these safe streets and safe highways. Kind of the one that we're certainly most familiar with is how AI is used in some of the self-driving vehicles that are on the roads today. And certainly some states have opened up their roads for kind of the testing and deployment of autonomous trucks. I think we're still years, decades away from any full-scale implementation, but we noted this in our comments. We kind of have seen some of the problems with rushing to advance this technology when it hasn't been proven to operate safely every time it's supposed to and in every way it's supposed to.
One of the concerns that OOIDA raised involved an overall issue with the adoption of new technologies, things that don't necessarily involve artificial intelligence. Can you explain what those concerns were?
Yeah, over the last few years, we've kind of seen some detrimental safety impacts when DOT and other agencies, mandate or adopt vehicle technologies. Certainly, we've seen that in some of the crashes that happen with self-driving trucks, but automatic emergency braking. We've got a proposed mandate that's coming down the line from FMCSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, that was enacted by Congress in 2021. But we've seen AEB trucks on the road, have these false activations right now. So really want to make sure the technology is tested, researched, and if it improves safety, then okay, we can put it on the trucks. But putting out these mandates when we're not sure it's working the way it's intended to, we've seen that cause a lot of problems on the road right now.
You mentioned with autonomous vehicles or driverless vehicles that we've seen some of the problems already.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can go over some of the bigger problems that we have seen with those.
Really, you see the AI technology not recognizing vehicles, not recognizing highway signs, not being able to respond to law enforcement or emergency personnel vehicles on the road. And it seems like we've got a different crash or accident pop up every week with an automated vehicle system, and not necessarily automated trucks all the time, but I think it raises a lot of questions about this technology. And that's kind of one of the questions questions we've asked for years now with DOT and FMCSA is, how well is this technology working? And unfortunately, due to the voluntary reporting guidelines that are in place, it's really tough to get a real idea of some of these systems. And right now, a lot of the NHTSA had put in a general standing order a couple of years ago that requires some of these technology companies to report some safety data, but it's only after a crash has taken place. I think we'd like to see a much more thorough testing and data transparency process for some of these companies to kind of report how the technology is working when they're testing it. It's something we just don't really have a handle on right now.
Let's move on to another topic. I know that you wanted to talk about CARB. The California Air Resources Board has been pushing forward with what it calls its Advanced Clean Fleets Rule. And truckers have concerns about that as well. Let's start with the rule itself. Jay, what is basically what is the rule that CARB's put into place?
So this was a CARB rule enacted in California in 2023, really applying to drayage trucks and what they call high priority fleets, which is companies that have 50 or more vehicles in their fleet or have a gross annual revenue exceeding $5 million. And it basically phases in a transition to zero-emission vehicles. And for drayage trucks, that was going to begin as soon as this year, and then eventually moving towards 2036, where the state completely is going to not allow any new medium or heavy-duty vehicles, internal combustion vehicles, to be sold. It's going to be all zero electric 2036 if this law goes into effect. But the law does need a waiver from the Environmental Protection Agency before it can be implemented and enforced. And EPA is kind of reviewing CARB's waiver on that right now. They held a virtual public hearing last week that gave EPA officials a lot of information from stakeholders, both in the trucking side, from the motor coach side, as well as different environmental groups. Last week, there's going to be a public docket open through early next month, I think September 16th, and then EPA will review the comments and make a determination whether or not to grant the waiver for this CARB rule.
You mentioned that this applies to only certain fleets right now, including these high priority, which is basically just 50 or more trucks. But there are concerns that this could basically kind of filter down to the smaller fleets.
No question. And kind of looking at CARB's history and kind of seeing where they're going with some of the other rules that they've put in the past few years, we kind of have a hunch that eventually they're going to want some updated emissions rules for all trucks, not just the high priority fleets, not just the drayage trucks, but all vehicles in California. And at the hearing last week, we specifically said that aspects of this rule, if they're applied to small businesses, are going to have a troubling effect, and it's going to be another unworkable emissions rules for California small businesses. And kind of in conclusion, we said pushing forward with this waiver or forcing further misguided environmental rules on the trucking industry will not achieve the desired heavy-duty vehicle emissions outcomes. So urged EPA not to grant the CARB waiver on the Advanced Clean Fleets rule.
Just a few seconds left here. Do we know after this hearing what's next in this process as far as EPA either approving or disapproving the CARB?
So the public docket is going to remain open through September 16th, and then EPA will take some time to review the waiver and make a final decision. Not exactly sure on that timeline, perhaps by the end of this year, but certainly won't be before that September 16th deadline.
Excellent. Jay, thank you very much for the information. Sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've been talking with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. And folks, you can keep up to date on these issues by going to the website landline.media. Again, that's landline.media. And you can express your opinion to your officials in Congress by going to the website fightingfortruckers.com. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
ULSD is hurting your engine. Fight back with Howe's Diesel Defender. Get the most powerful cleaning and maximum lubricity to protect and extend the life of your entire system. At a guaranteed increase in fuel economy, and you can't go wrong with Howe's.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget miss accuracy, weigh your truck on a CAT scale.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.